Thanks, everybody. Welcome to Build. I'm your host, Ricky Camilleri, and you loved our next guest on Justified, Battle Creek, Flesh and Bone, and now in this month alone, or in August, the month of August alone, you can see Damon Herriman in the new films The Nightingale, Quentin Tarantino's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, the upcoming season of Mindhunter, and the fantastic Epix show, Perpetual Grace. Let's take a look.
$4 million.
We should take that money. It'll be easy. We're just a couple old people. Oh, yeah, and you'd have to get hooked on methadone.
For real?
My parents can tell.
After I count down 3 rounds, and hell, I'll be in good company.
We have a church where we treat men and women troubled, such as you.
You're gonna be okay.
I see my redhead, mess bag, tear shed, queen bee must squeeze.
It's a new day, boy.
They stole all that money. This church, they're supposed to help people, but they use it to rip people off.
I'm getting it back. Make things right.
Let's stay the plan.
They left last night. They're on their way.
Come with me.
It's not like we're hurting them. We just get them out of the picture for a little while.
And I'll be in good company.
I am going to kill you, motherfucker. I am the pale horse of death, and hell follows me, boy. Prepare for the devil. I shall deliver you unto his fucking kingdom come.
The guy who's supposed to be dead is running around.
He just killed a 24-year-old kid with his shoe. Don't worry. I got a plan.
I am my own god.
Thank you for this loving gift.
This is getting out of control.
My husband is a very powerful man, capable of kneeling and rising again.
Get down here and get the fucking crazy old man.
Where you going, boys?
I'm a wanted man. Do you understand? I'm a wanted man.
Get it. Get the rhythm. Get the rhythm. There you go. There you fucking go. Get the rhythm. Get the rhythm. There you go. There you fucking go. Get the rhythm. Get the rhythm. There you go. There you fucking go. Get the rhythm. Get the rhythm. You feeling strong enough?
Strong enough for what?
He's an old man.
He's not, turns out.
Everybody, please welcome Damon Herriman. Let's hear it. Big month for you, man. Big couple months, huh?
Yeah, it's a little busy, yeah.
Yeah.
A few things going on.
Is it busy right now, or was it busy over the last, like, 2 years, and now they're kind of just all coming out?
It's exactly that. In fact, I didn't even know that all these things from the last couple of years would all come out at once. And now it's just like, yeah, it's like they all chose the one kind of 6-week period to all come out at the same time.
Before we really get into Perpetual Grace, which is a fantastic show, I think it's one of the best shows on the air right now, completely unique and well-made. Right away, I want to ask, you are playing Charles Manson in 2 different pieces by 2 of the sort of greatest directors working right now. The first for Quentin Tarantino in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and the second for David Fincher in Mindhunter. How did that happen?
Well, it was just 2 separate auditions. Neither of them were aware of the other job at the time. It was just one of those crazy coincidences, really. Yeah, I mean, when both of those worked out, I was both thrilled and also like questioning what the hell is wrong with me that I'm playing Charles Manson twice. But ultimately, it's a good thing getting to work with those guys.
I imagine that they're 2 very different versions of Manson. I don't know much about the second season of Mindhunter, but based off of, I think, the still that has gone around, it's Manson and what the show is. Manson is incarcerated and they're interviewing him or talking to him in some capacity, which is a very different Manson than the one that we would get in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Were your auditions different for those as well?
Yeah, a little. I mean, tonally they're different. You know, Mindhunter is very much a drama, and Tarantino has his own tone in the stuff that he makes. But also, yeah, you know, Manson in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. It's 1969. He's not yet been in jail for the famous crimes. Anyway, he's been in jail for a long time for other stuff. But so he's actually, you know, he's a happy kind of guy at that point. He's living a pretty enjoyable life as far as he's concerned. When Manson's in jail, he's particularly unhappy, and he wants everyone to know it too.
He's also a master manipulator. I mean, he was always kind of I don't want to say master manipulator because I don't like giving him too much credit, but he was a manipulator. I mean, going back all the way in his early days when he was essentially like a pimp and what he was arrested for at that time. But when he was a cult leader, he was manipulating. But then when he got in jail, he became a media manipulator. And anybody that came in to interview him, he was always trying to manipulate them to his side or see him as even crazier than he actually was, it seemed.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's what you sort of, you know, obviously I watched pretty much everything you can watch, I think, and you kind of discover that he had many different faces, and a lot of those he was choosing to present at just, you know, when he felt like it. So it would depend on the particular day, the particular year, the particular minute you were talking to him, what mood he was in, how you were speaking to him. It's quite interesting when you see the interviews he does, or he did. The crazier you treated him, the crazier he behaved. He kind of gave that back. He kind of dialed it up a bit. Right. And a couple of interviews he's treated kind of normally, and it's not really the Manson we expect to see. He kind of responds in a more normal way as well. It's pretty fascinating.
Sort of giving the people the version of him that he thinks that they want in that moment.
I think so. And he would talk about, there's no doubt that he was several versions of crazy, but he also would be aware of amping up the crazy, and he would even play. He would play a character called Crazy Charlie in prison and stuff to scare off the big guys, because he was only about 5'3". He was tiny, you know, which. Yeah, it goes into what you were saying before about the manipulation. If you're that small in that kind of world of being in jail from the age of 10, you got to probably develop some kind of way to protect yourself. And I think, and he kind of did it through that.
Now, you had a role on Justified for some time, and I'm wondering if, because we had Timothy Olyphant here as well, who's also in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and I assume that Quentin Tarantino was a Justified fan and had seen it. Had he seen it? Did he talk to you at all about it? Because part of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is about an actor who is in shows that were essentially the original versions of Justified in a lot of ways.
Right. Yeah, it turns out that that Quentin Tarantino is a big fan of Justified. I discovered this a couple of years ago. Walton Goggins, who's in The Hateful Eight and played Boyd Crowder in Justified, he was telling me, there's going to be a screening of Hateful Eight in Sydney. You should go along. You know, Quentin's going to be there. You know, tell him I said hi if you see him. And I'm thinking, yeah, like I'm going to see Quentin and say hi to, I don't know, Quentin Tarantino.
You don't want to be the guy that's like, Quentin, it's Damon. You know me from Justified, like.
Well, as it turned out, Quentin sat through his movie. He was there watching the whole thing with Samuel L. Jackson, and we happened to be walking back up the stairs at the end of the movie, and he was next to me, and I'm like, okay, you're going to kick yourself if you don't say it. Walton said to say hi. I'm just going to say hi. I said, excuse me, that was an awesome movie. Walton Goggins said to say hi. He and I worked together before, and he was like, oh, thank you. And they went, you're Dewey Crow, which is my character on Justified, which is a very unexpected reaction. I was not expecting Quentin Tarantino to know any of the roles I've played, let alone by name. So that was kind of, and then he dragged me back down the stairs to meet Samuel L. Jackson, who also was a fan of Justified.
Really?
Yeah.
Samuel L. Jackson as well was like, Dewey Crow.
Yeah. And then Samuel L. Jackson took out his phone to get a selfie to send Walton. So then I woke up the next day with a photo in my email sent from Walton of me and Samuel L. Jackson and Quentin Tarantino. It was pretty funny.
So when you auditioned to play Charlie for Once Upon a Time, he had an idea. He knew who you were and was a fan of your work.
Yeah, and in fact, Timothy Nicholas Hammond, who's in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and Timothy Olyphant, both had kind of had a chat about mentioning me to Quentin when they knew the role hadn't been cast, and I know Tim had said, you know, that's the guy who plays as Dewey Crow. So I think it did have a little bit of a assistance.
I want to get back to Once Upon a Time a little bit later and what it's like to shoot on a movie like that. But I want to talk about Perpetual Grace because it is one of the most beautiful things on television right now. And it is also one of the quirkiest and weirdest and well written and best acted as well. And that has a lot to do with you and Jimmi Simpson and Ben Kingsley. How did you hear about this show? What was it like getting involved in the process? What did you know about it going into it?
It was just one of those things, an audition that comes along. I knew that Steve Conrad was the producer and the creator and the writer and the director of most of it, and that he'd done this show called Patriot, which some people may know from, which is an Amazon series, another really cool show. And he's also, Steve Conrad, if you look at his IMDb, he's got a list of films you would have heard of. He's done a lot of awesome stuff. So I knew that, and also just from reading the first pilot episode, I knew that it was an amazing piece of writing. It's not that often that you get to read scripts that are that good. There's just a whole other level that Steve's working at, where the quality of the plots that are taking place, the quality of the character writing and how they are different from each other, and the dialogue, all of it's great. And that was just so evident from the very first time I read it. And
it's so uniquely directed, the beats and the pauses and the performances. Mm-hmm. How much of that could you see on the page when you got the script? Like, could you feel what the tone of the whole piece was going to be when you were reading it?
To some degree, yeah, and I think that's part of the thing of. I think that's part of the way Steve casts, just from hearing him talk about it, is people getting that tone, because it is a particular thing, and people who, if you see the show, you kind of know what I mean. It doesn't feel quite like anything else. It's got a few flavors of other things, but it's a drama, but it's kind of absurd and it's very funny at times. So to me, that certainly did jump out off the page, and the whole thing was just a joy. Working with Jimmi Simpson and the rest of that cast was, yeah.
Yeah, you have some incredibly fun scenes with Jimmi Simpson right from the bat, but I think one of my favorites is when Jimmy has to get bit by a rattlesnake. Right. And he's someone to pull that laugh that you give when he gets bit is just like such an amazing distillation of who your character is. It's so perfectly articulate as to who, no matter what the situation is, this guy is going to giggle like a little boy at something that is dangerous.
Right. And also, well, that laugh is actually in the script, not the sound of it, but the fact that he has this kind of grotesque, shrieking laugh. It actually says it in the big print, and it also says that Ben Kingsley plays my father in it, and he describes my laugh at one point. So that was also part of the audition, was doing that scene with that laugh. And I just remember when we came to shoot that day, I was saying to Steve, I just really feel sorry for the crew having to listen to that over and over and over again, because of course you do it so many times. There's only one laugh in the scene, but
I can't remember. Is that the first time we get a glimpse of that laugh in the show?
Yes,
it's like episode 3 or 2 or 3.
It is. Yeah, I think it is. That laugh thankfully doesn't come out too often, or people would be changing channels. Yeah.
Another project, I don't want to sort of do a bullet list, but they're all really great projects. There's nothing that's sort of not worth talking about here. And that's The Nightingale, which is Jennifer Kent, the director of the Babadook's second movie, a complete kind of 180 for her, I think, in terms of what she's directing, and also a brutal experience, intentionally so, and extremely brave. And I imagine difficult for you as an actor to do and to agree to do. So what was that process like?
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely one of the most harrowing jobs I've ever done in my life, if not the most, just through the nature of the role that I was playing. I played this incredibly horrible, brutal British soldier in the 1800s in Tasmania.
Who's just essentially kind of raping and pillaging his way through Tasmania.
Kind of, yeah. And look, when someone like Jennifer Kent wants you to be in her film, then there's not too much thinking you have to do. I think it wouldn't have really mattered what the role was. I would have wanted to work with Jen. But everything about that movie was hard to make, and it was shot in Tasmania in winter. It was
You guys actually shot in Tasmania.
Yeah, which is a state of Australia. I think, that's the southernmost state of Australia, and it was winter and it was freezing cold, and we had to do a lot of horrible things to some very nice people that we were working with and we cared about, and there were a lot of hugs going around that set when we would cut, because the scenes we'd done prior to that were just so grueling and harrowing.
A lot of hugs and apologizing. And
yeah, there really was. Yeah, and crying, and it's not that often that. I mean, the film's not just that stuff, but when those scenes were happening, it's even though it's not real life, it's so true to life, I guess, in the way that it's shot and presented, that it feels pretty close to real when you're doing it.
I love your performance in that film because there's a shade of a difference between you and the lieutenant in terms of calculated sociopathic brutality and almost ignorance, idiotic brutality, which is almost where your characters comes from. And you see a moment or two, glimpses of humanity in him as he's trying to live up to this man, as well as noticing his different types of brutality and being somewhat horrified by it. It doesn't in any way, excuse his awful behavior throughout it, but it's such a small shade of difference between these two characters. What was it like? Is that just in the writing? Is that just in the scenes? Or is that something that you guys talk about on set and figure out?
I think it's definitely in the writing. I mean, he's kind of this, sycophantic follower. He's trying to impress his boss, and he's trying to be a version of him, but he's probably actually just pathetic and insecure, but I think I also, separately from that, as an actor, like to, I think most actors try not to just show one dimension of a character, and especially if you're playing a bad guy, you can fall into a trap of mustache twirling villain, and you want to still find some humanity of some kind in no matter who you're playing, I think.
Well, the lack of humanity it's systemic at that time, and they are just sort of arbiters of that point of view in a lot of ways. It's not. They are in no way going against the grain.
No, that's absolutely true. It's the Nightingale it's not specifically a true story, but it is in the sense that everything that takes place in that movie happened in some form on many, many occasions. Yeah.
So we're talking about really 4 incredibly strong points of view as far as filmmakers go, that for these projects: Steve Conrad, Jennifer Kent, David Fincher, Quentin Tarantino. What is a thing that that you've noticed that binds them all together in terms of how they direct and how they run a set?
Look, probably that nothing binds them together. Like, they're completely different, and that's what's amazing. I think that there's no one thing that makes somebody a great director. And I should give a shout out to Andrew Dominic, actually, who's the director of the episode of Mindhunter. Even though David Fincher was around and involved, that particular some of the stuff I did was with Andrew Dominic, who's another amazing
Killing Them Softly and Jesse James
and Chopper. Look, I think, that's what's fascinating, is that directors can work in such different ways. They can be incredibly hands-on and give a lot of very specific pieces of direction, or they can say virtually nothing, and they are still a brilliant director. And it's almost in the fact that they're letting you do your thing and not saying anything is part of what they do. Or they'll just give one little note, very, very occasionally, that speaks volumes. So,
do you have a preference? Someone who is giving notes and is very specific in how they're sort of handling you, or someone who kind of lets you do your thing and hangs back?
I think there's a look. I think at the end of the day, it comes down to whether those notes that they're giving are good notes that you respond well to. I think there's you know what I mean?
Can I ask what's a bad note? Like, what's a really bad note?
Do it better.
Do it better?
Yeah.
But that sounds like a joke. That sounds like a really good joke. Yeah.
What would be a really bad note? Oh, gee, I don't know. There are probably lots of times that I've felt like, look, anything that is directing an actor to do something that doesn't that goes against what's in the writing or what the character they're playing is likely to do. Like if you've played a character for a while, I guess this is more particular to if you're in a series or something. But if you're up to the end of towards the end of a series, you've done a lot of episodes, and then if a director came on and gave a note that was just so wrong for something your character would do, that would probably be the kind of thing that you would want to have a chat about, because you get to know the type of behavior that the character has that you're playing, and
that's the most delicate part of TV directing, I would imagine, when you come on for an episode and you have directions or you have ideas, but you have to know exactly how to approach these actors so that none of them are kind of like, yeah, I don't think so, buddy.
Yeah, and that must happen a lot. I mean, I got to give credit to the directors who do come on just, for an episode here and there, because they have to know the show like the back of their hand. They have to know the characters. They have to know how the actors work. That can't be easy.
Or it's like the actor doesn't say, I don't think so, buddy. They go, oh, okay. And then they pull a writer over.
Right.
He just told me to do this thing, and then the writer goes back over to the director, and he's not doing that.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I'm kind of obsessed with Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I think I said this in the green room. I think it may be my favorite Quentin Tarantino movie, second only to Jackie Brown, if it is second to one of his movies. And one of the things that I love about watching this movie is that it's so big for such a small movie. It's a very intimate, small movie where the jokes come from nuances and weird character tics. But from what I've talked to, I mean, you just have so much more time to shoot a movie like this. Like how, you have, for the most part, a few scenes, but they're brief. How long were you on set for that?
4 days.
Yeah,
4 days. Yeah.
That's a lot.
We shot a little more though. So I think Quentin said at Cannes that he'd shot quite a bit more material, but at some point you got to cut it down into a movie that is not so long that people won't go see it. So, although I think with him they probably still go see it anyway because it's Quentin Tarantino. But so I was there for 4 days, and it was just a pure joy. It was probably the most fun I've had as an actor in my life, I think.
And I love your performance as Manson in that is removing so much of the mystique and just making him this kind of dude who is looking for a record. I mean, we have an idea as to who he is, but you don't need to inject him with any of that in your performance.
Right. I guess because there's nothing, people who've seen the film, they'll know this. There's not really giving anything away. There's nothing about... you only have to inject a character with that kind of stuff if the scenes are requiring it. And, I was kind of... the main thing that I used for that version of Manson was listening to the audition tapes he did a year or two before the film set. Someone sent me the link. It's on YouTube, and it's him going and recording a whole bunch of his songs, or trying to record a bunch.
I've listened to those.
Right, and he's mostly talking. Like it's actually an incredible insight into him at that time. He's mostly talking and laughing, and I think he's smoking pot, and you can hear girls giggling in the background. He's completely lacking in any kind of discipline or. He should be going in there and playing his songs as best he can, but he keeps making mistakes and then laughing when he's making mistakes. But you just get a sense of him that you don't get, for example, in the jail interviews where you see him later, where he's just really angry.
Yeah. You get a sense of the con artist in him in those early tapes, right? He's not good at this thing, so he keeps making excuses for it, and he keeps trying to lure people in different ways because you can in the audio you can hear that he's seeing people aren't really buying what he's selling in that moment.
Right. Yeah. Totally.
We have time for a couple questions from the audience. Who was right here?
Hi there. You've worked with some of my favorite directors of all time, so I was wondering if you had any other filmmakers that you hope to work with in the future.
Oh, yeah, I mean, probably, probably many. I mean, you know, if I could just wave a magic wand, I would say Martin Scorsese, but, you know, yeah, there are plenty, but he would probably be at the top of my list, yeah.
One more.
Hello. I was going to ask, what was it like to work with the actors on set at Once Upon a Time in Hollywood? I feel like there were so many different people on set. I don't know if you would really have that opportunity because of the small scenes, but what was that like for you?
It was awesome. You know, I worked with Brad Pitt a little and Margot Robbie and Emil Hirsch, and everyone was super nice, just really down to earth. I think there's something that happens.
Your work with Brad Pitt is staring up into the into the sun.
Right. And we shot a little bit more than that too. Yeah, I think there's something that happens when there's a movie that's so kind of, when you've got someone like Quentin Tarantino who's at the top of the tree in a movie like that, everyone else just has to kind of, I don't, not to say anyone would have been behaving differently on any other set, but there just feels like there's no room for anyone to act like they're important or special. I mean, you're in a Quentin Tarantino movie. I think everyone's like thrilled to be there. You know, even Margot Robbie was saying to be there, I can't believe we're in a Quentin Tarantino movie. I'm like, you're doing all right. You know?
Yeah, you just got nominated for a Martin Scorsese movie a couple years ago.
Exactly.
Yeah. Damon, congrats, man, on all the work that's coming out right now. It's all fantastic. Perpetual Grace is on Epix. I think there's a couple episodes left of the season. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is currently in theaters. Nightingale comes out tomorrow, I believe.
Friday, is it? Yeah.
Or tomorrow's Thursday. Thursday, Friday, yeah.
Right.
One of those days. And Mindhunter is August 16th, I think?
That's right.
Right. Okay, everybody give a huge round of applause for Damon Herriman. Let's hear it.
Thank you.